Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out this Helios MP35 dehumidifier from AlorAir. So let's go ahead and open this up and see what's inside. Alright, when you first open it, you will get your user's manual for the MP35 and the MP55. And then you will get your styrofoam on top along with these plastic corner pieces. This really ensures that there's not going to be any dents on the corners of your product, which is pretty nice. All right, let's go ahead and pull out this big piece of foam. All right, we'll pull this out first, and this looks like to be a drain hose. We also have our power cord right here, and it is hardwired to the unit. On this side, we have, looks like another drain hose, and then the unit itself. Now, I've owned dehumidifiers before, and they're always the ones that kind of stand up straight and long. They have vents on the front. They have like a water catchment container in the bottom, so you can run that, or you can maybe screw in like a hose to run it to somewhere. This one right here is nothing like that. This is a commercial grade dehumidifier, thus being small, but I only need it for my basement. And my basement, you know, it's probably 700 square feet. So I think this will fit this environment very well. All right, so first let's get some measurements and some weight of this thing. It is right at 16 inches in length. The height is right at 12 inches. If you include the handle, you're looking at an additional inch. And then the depth is a little under 12 inches. And then the weight looks to be right around 35.4 pounds. All right, here's a close-up of the front of the unit. We have our 4 buttons right here and our 4 indicators right here, along with a number panel. Right here is your on-off switch. Right here is your drain, so I believe that turns on the pump, which would be right here if you're going to connect it and want to have your water pumped out. Right here is your set button, and right here is your GPP mode. The indicator lights is, here's your power button, here's your continuous light, so that means if it's continuously running, like you have it set for continuous, that will light up. Here is your pump light right here, so if it's actively pumping. And here is the light to if your GPP mode is activated. Down a little lower, I'm sorry, but you couldn't see it before, but this is your actual pump outlet. So if you're going to be pumping your water out, you'll have a hose connected right here. Here are some auxiliary connections right here. And then we have a network communication port, which I believe is for a remote. But we didn't get a remote with this unit, so we will not be using that. And then here is the AC power cord. You can also see the front of the unit has a bunch of information, warranty information, how to contact if you need some help, and some basic information about the dehumidifier itself. And now, being an off-grid channel, one of the main things I want to know about this dehumidifier is how much power it actually pulls at initial startup and how much it uses when it's constantly running. And to do that, we'll be plugging it into this power meter right here. This power meter will monitor the constant wattage that it's being drawn, and it will show the low and high wattage. And we'll also be plugging it into this Dobson 2000 as our power source. The first setup that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use the gravity hose, which is this bigger one right here, and the port is on the opposite side of the unit. And with that, we'll go ahead and see how much of the startup is and how much of the continuous wattage is being drawn from this unit. So let me go and hook this hose up, and then we'll plug it in and turn it on. Just so you're aware, the gravity hose is about 6 to 6.5 feet long, so probably about 2 meters. It was pretty easy to push into the port. I didn't have to like heat up the hose or anything. Plug it in, see what happens. All right, it just showed US and then a 20 and then a 51. All right, it says that the humidity level in here right now is at 50. So I went ahead and turned it down to 35 just to get this thing running. And our meter shows that it is pulling 272 watts. And the highest draw was 275.7 watts. So it's like a soft start. It doesn't really push. All right, I went ahead and raised it up a little bit so that way the gravity hose has more of a chance of letting the water run down. Here is the sound meter from about 3 feet away. So it looks between about 55 and 57 decibels. And on the air intake side of the dehumidifier, there is actually 2 screws right down here at the bottom where you can take this plate off and take out the filter. And you can either spray that filter off and let it dry or use a vacuum to get all the dust off. If you press GPP mode, you can see that GPP turns on and it displays now a 2 or 3 digit number, which is now 42. And 42 is our current grains per pound, or GPP. And if we had set, we could actually lower that if we wanted to. But let's go ahead and turn GPP off and set it back to relative humidity. I see on our meter that it's down to 47 watts. So that is just the fan that's running now. So this must have shut off. Well, let's see if I try to drain, if it will, well, hopefully it doesn't start spitting out water. But let's see how much power it uses. All right, the pump is on. Now let's try to drain. And it only went up to 48.7 watts. So the pump does not use very much wattage at all. All right, I'm holding this down to turn the pump off. There we go, the pump is now off. And it did kick back on and we're back up to 265 watts. Now let's see if it actually did any kind of surge. And it does not. The surge at its highest point was only 278 watts. So there's not a giant surge to turn this thing on, which is very nice. All right, so I'm gonna let this thing run for an hour or two and we'll see if we're actually able to collect any water. This is a basement in March, so it is not very humid in here anyway. So if we get any water whatsoever, I'll be very surprised. But I'll come back in an hour or two and we'll see what happens. All right, well, it's been an hour and a half and this thing's been running just fine. It says that it's at 43% humidity in here, and I can actually see that there is water in the tube. You can see it kind of just trickling down, and I have it going into this little gallon container right here. And I was surprised to find out there's actually water in that container. I didn't think we would get anything in this basement because it's just not very humid in here. I mean, it's pretty dry in this basement, and we still got some water. Let's go ahead and pour it out just to kind of show you how much I got in an hour and a half. And here's how much water we collected. I will definitely be revisiting this unit once we're in midsummer or spring, when it's a lot more humid in this basement. That way I can actually show you how much water I'm collecting on a daily basis. So if you have any questions about the Helios MP35 from AlorAir, please go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll have a link to this item in my description along with everything else I used, just in case you want to look further into it. Thanks again and have a great day. Bye-bye.